baby of the four couples. You
That is
know,
true.
you were
I don't know
just
what happened to me.
there was a
Yes.
good cast, Kim.
It was a great cast.
Everybody was very professional and most of everybody had done theater. Joni was the first student to go right from high school to the Yale Drama School since Julie Harris. So there was a big gap between Julie going from high school in Grosse Pointe to the Yale Drama School and Joan Van Ark. There was a huge period of time. It's pretty cool, pretty
Mhm.
cool. Joni was and is a wonderful actress and did Broadway. And
Mhm.
I remember Joni saying once, this is so many years ago, and I said, Joni, you should go into therapy. Everyone's in therapy. We should. My acting teacher made me go to therapy, and she goes, well, no, but then I'm afraid I'll lose my mojo. She didn't say
Angst.
mojo,
Your
whatever.
angstness of
But
it.
I think when you go into therapy, I think your craft is just going to be better.
Right.
You're going to own it as opposed to it owning you.
Well, I was crushed when he went. I remember that day very clearly too, when David Jacobs called me on the phone and said Don's not going to be on the show anymore. He was driving from Santa Barbara, and I guess that got to be a lot for him. But I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen to our show? And during that season, I had had a pretty dramatic breakup with a boyfriend or companion. Don was so compassionate because he heard me crying in my dressing room one day.
Mm.
And he came in and he sat with me. I couldn't believe how I'd gotten to this point. Here I'm on this great television show, and my life, my personal life was falling apart. And he came in and sat with me and was just so tender and so, like you say, the father figure of our cul-de-sac. But I always wonder how the direction of the show had he stayed there. I always loved him. And he was the biggest star, like Julie Harris. I remember seeing him in movies early on. How did you think of him, Constance?
I remember sitting in the car with him the first day we shot, and because I was brought up Catholic, 17 years of Catholic school. Oh my God. I sat there thinking,
Hence
oh my
therapy.
God, I saw the hoodlum priest at least 3 times, maybe four, and he was the hoodlum priest in this
Oh
movie.
my goodness.
And I'm sitting next to him, and I'm like, and of course, bus stop too.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But then we used to go to Santa Barbara a lot, and we would go out with him and his wife, and it was really nice, and we got to know them better. He
Oh.
said the reason he left the show was he didn't like the direction it was going in terms of, he wasn't like, religious, like in the today's
He
sense of
was
the word.
God loving,
He
yeah, for
was
sure.
he was a very spiritual man, and he just
Hmm.
wasn't happy with what he thought was happening to the trajectory of the series, and he just didn't want to. This is what I remember, and he just didn't want to do it anymore. And I thought he and Michele had great chemistry.
Oh,
They
they
had great
did.
chemistry. You know,
Hmm.
they were really good together. But and of course his wife said, "You're what? You're what? You're leaving the series?" She was not happy. I've seen Michele, I've seen Don, I see Bill a lot
How's
because he
Michelle
and Sam.
doing?
She's good. I saw her in New York. Uh,
Mhm.
she still has a place in New York. I saw her in New York in June. It was her birthday, so we brought breakfast over, and was really nice. She really liked Sam a
Fun.
lot because he's a nice Jewish boy, so she
Well,
she
of
really likes him
course.
a lot.
Like we didn't know this.
Yeah, right. She's a real, whatever the female version of a mensch is. She's
Yeah.
she's a real mensch, and she's very,
Menchette.
yeah. I don't really know Ted very well. I never felt I didn't have that many. I guess I had scenes with him. Of course I did, but I never felt. I know I think he was from Oklahoma. I think his dad was a doctor. I found him very enigmatic, but that probably makes him a more interesting actor.
He had done a soap opera, I think, prior to
Had
Knots
him?
Landing.
I don't know.
I think, but I could be wrong on that. But he was very helpful with me because for to me, because I was breaking up with Warren at that time, and Warren was a complete abuser of alcohol and drugs. And Ted got me hooked up in Al-Anon for a while, where it was very helpful, where I got connected with that and understood a lot more what was going on in my world. And I think his character in the show was an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic. Because didn't he do some episodes where he was
Yeah,
fell off the wagon?
right. So I see Bill a lot. They just spent the weekend here with us in Boston in October.
Oh,
Yeah.
how neat.
Bill and I had a really nice rapport, and it just was a nice dynamic between Bill and I. And I think he brought obviously a lot to that scenario because he was very invested in the relationship. And I mean, it was, I was lucky. I was really, really lucky,
Hmm.
really lucky. I don't think that was the initial plan. I think they were going to pair him up with maybe with Donna. I really don't remember. But then we had this kind of, I don't know, it just sort of evolved and it was a nice, I like to think that we were the poor man's Gable and Lombard. Really poor man. Really, really poor man's Gable and Lombard. And that
Hardly,
was,
darling,
yeah,
hardly.
oh my Lord. And the kind of snappy repartee and his, not putting up with his character's bullshit and of course, Bill was so funny. He's always scratching his balls. I would say to him, Bill, what have you got there? What are you doing? What have you got down there? You're constantly, what is going on? I think that won his respect. And then it was just off to the races after that. I'm so bad. I'm such a bitch. And but the best story was one morning we had an early call, and I was so pissed at my son because even though he was only 5, I don't know what, 4, whatever, I don't know, 3, I slammed his bedroom door in our little bungalow up in Beverly Glen, which was so old, and the door cracked. Why he was up that early anyway, I don't know. But anyway, so I
That's
go
why
to
you were
the
mad.
studio. Yeah, that's why I was mad. So I go to the set and I go in the makeup trailer, and it's just Ava and I. And I'm crying because I was so mean to my son. I slammed the door and the thing and the thing and the guy, I'm so upset. So that night, the hard line rings in our bedroom, and Sam picks up the phone. Hello, darling. It's Ava. Is Constance there? And he's going. So and she had to be really bitchy towards me in the show. She hated me because I was not good enough for her son. She was calling to see if I was okay. She was so lovely.
Oh,
She was so lovely because she knew how upset I'd been that morning. And she was, yeah, it was very sweet. She was checking up on
oh,
me. Yeah.
that's so nice. Oh, I have to tell you this. Well, I guess it's been about a year now, or maybe, give or take. I was in my bathroom. I remember this distinctly, and this whole vision of Kevin Dobson came to me. Now,
Oh,
when he was in the hospital, I don't know if you remember, he got sick during one of our Knots Landings or something, and he was in that hospital at Cedars on, what is it, Fairfax and Third or something like that. And I went to visit him, and I wore this really pretty yellow dress. It was summer, and it was, sleeveless, kind of a sweetheart neck. And we were very popular then, although I don't know that I realized how popular the show was. But when I came in there, it got really exciting with the nurses and everything around. And I sat there with Kevin, and he goes, "Oh, Kim, you look like a movie star." And he's always so generous as well. And we chatted for a bit. Okay, so that's many, 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 many years ago. And like I say, not too long ago, 6 months, 9 months, the day before I found out he passed, this whole vision came to me about, oh, Kevin, I remember that night or that day at the hospital, and I went to visit him, and he was so nice. Why did that come into my mind? And then the next day, I found out that he had died.
oh,
The
wow.
next day, it wasn't
Wow.
like a week later or anything like that.
Wow.
And so I have this thought that I don't know why he came to visit me before, I don't exactly know, obviously, what happens after we die or our spirit leaving, but his spirit came and visited me.
But you have to understand that you were receptive to that. So
Yes,
that wouldn't have happened. That's a, interaction of the two of you, right? It's not just
right.
him or not just you. And by the way, and I'm saying this very seriously, redheads were only 1% of the population in the world, and we are more sensitive than other people because we have light eyes, light skin, light hair. It's a fact. This isn't just
Yeah. Okay.
my opinion.
And here's a fact.
And so you having that experience doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, look at anything's
Yeah.
possible.
Right.
Anything's possible. When Julie Harris was alive, she lived in Cape Cod, which is about 2 hours from here. So because of Julie, when Daniel was born, we bought a house in the Cape because she let us stay in her house when he was a baby. And we just fell in love with this little town that she lived in. So we started renting houses and then we bought a house there. So I always told Julie she was responsible for our second mortgage. And we saw Julie a lot, which was great.
Oh, isn't that so nice?
So I
I
do
miss
see,
Julie.
she
Thank God
died
for that.
11 years ago. It's been 11 years
Isn't
this
it?
past summer. Her birthday was 2 weeks ago, December 2nd.
Oh,
And she had a stroke when she was doing a show at Victory
yes,
Gardens in Chicago, and they didn't find
yes.
her until she didn't show up for the matinee.
Oh,
And
I didn't
so
know that that
she
was
had
how
a
they found
lot
her.
of therapy, and she even studied with a mime here, and she went to a very famous rehab place here in Boston. I mean, she left no stone unturned. She had great care. She actually did a play in the Cape, and there's a woman in the play that doesn't speak. So Julie did that character in the play. And I said to Julie, I said, Julie, your performance was more riveting, not speaking, than anybody else's in that production. But her speech was very labored.
Talk about a mensch.
Yeah, she was in a class by herself.
I'll never forget that one show that we were all in the cul-de-sac and Julie, she's on the porch of their house, of Ted and Joan's house. And she's standing there on the porch and she says, as only Julie could do, I feel a storm is brewing in that episode. And it just spoke volumes about our cul-de-sac.
I think, like any breakup, we'd like to be the breaker upper.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I think that when those decisions are made for you and you don't see them coming, I don't think it was handled very well. But then how do you handle a brain tumor? Isn't that a song from My Fair Lady? Oh, no, that's How Do You Handle a Woman? Anyway, um,